The hero's continent just got absolutely steamrolled. Demon Queen Elizabeth decided peace was never an option, launching an all-out assault that crushed every single empire into dust. The humans held out the longest, but they didn't fall to demonic might. They fell to an inside job. Human Prince Wis Malfoy betrayed his own bloodline, committing straight-up patricide to hand the empire over to the demons. When his former teacher Barrow screamed that a prophesied hero would rise to completely defeat Elizabeth, Wis was not having it. He literally mutated his arm into a monstrous, grotesque claw to silence the old man forever. Honestly, mutating your limb into a flesh cleaver to kill your high school tutor is a massive overreaction, but I guess it beats having to write a Notes app apology letter. Before Wis could strike, Queen Elizabeth stepped in and ordered him to stay his hand. She actually laughed at the idea of a hero bringing her downfall and found the whole thing highly amusing. Barrow revealed the ultimate win condition. Pulling the legendary Holy Sword Alpha from the stone platform in the main hall would instantly mark the end of demon rule. Elizabeth walked right up to the embedded blade, examined it closely, and boldly declared she was genuinely looking forward to this hero's arrival. Fast forward 5 years. We are now half a decade into absolute demonic tyranny. And by tyranny, I mean universal harmony. Elizabeth completely abolished all past inequalities. Elves, dwarves, humans, and demons are suddenly coexisting peacefully and thriving across the entire continent. Turns out the ultimate solution to systemic inequality was just putting a ridiculously overpowered goth mommy in charge of the global economy. Who knew? The citizens are actually terrified of losing this utopia. They love it so much they formed an anti-hero alliance to actively reject the prophesied savior. Back in the throne room, Elizabeth is getting incredibly impatient. She asks her court if there is literally any actual news on this so-called hero. Chancellor Twilia of the elf race and Chancellor Heimerdinger of the dwarf race report zero traces. Absolutely nothing. Chancellor Aristotle of the human race chimes in to say that resisting her would be completely in vain anyway. Meanwhile, Chancellor Jim whispers the real tea. Elizabeth actually desires this hero to show up so badly that she spends her free time aggressively researching ancient magic books and war tactics just to prepare for the fight. Chancellor Mogul casually reminds everyone that Elizabeth possesses such oppressive strength she could annihilate the entire continent instantly if she felt like it. Suddenly, Barrow Smith marches into the throne room holding a giant sign protesting the hero. Yes, the same priest who screamed about the prophecy. He is now the president of the Demon Queen Fan Club and the Anti-Prophesied Hero Association. The man switched up faster than a tech bro pivoting from crypto to AI the second the market dipped. Elizabeth is so entirely done with this nonsense. She stands up from her throne, grabs the priest with a giant magical hand, and demands to know exactly where this hero is hiding. Sweating profusely, Barrow suggests that sometimes prophecies can be a lie, or maybe just an honest mistake. Wis tries to kiss up, stepping in to state that it is a massive offense to apply such a flawed prophecy to Her Majesty. Elizabeth immediately slaps Wis away with her tail and instructs him to get lost. He fumbled that interaction with our goth mommy, at this point just past the controller bro. Queen Elizabeth is officially tired of waiting. She loudly proclaims that after reaching the absolute peak of world power, she even took the time to study ancient magic books and invent doomsday magic. All of this just so she could serve as an epic final stepping stone for the hero to get famous. But since this guy is completely MIA, she decides to take matters into her own hands. She marches right up to the holy sword embedded in the stone and grabs the hilt. Her chancellors absolutely lose their minds, panicking and shouting objections, but she ignores them entirely. Mocking the age-old legend that only the chosen hero could draw the blade, Elizabeth just yanks the thing out herself. She bypassed the hero's main questline like a speedrunner exploiting a day one glitch. The sheer force of her pulling the sword unleashes a colossal surge of magic that completely blasts through the castle roof. High Priest Barrow is terrified, begging Chancellor Mogul to cover him from the falling debris, while Chancellor Twilia just watches in sheer disbelief. Holding the sword, she found the location of hero through sword's magic. Elizabeth activates forced teleportation to go see the hero herself. Wis Malfoy desperately reaches out, crying and pleading to serve by her side, but she vanishes into thin air, leaving him sobbing on the floor like a fanboy who just realized his favorite streamer will never notice his donations. Meanwhile, the focus completely shifts over to Newbie Village. Meet Lu Ping. He is not a legendary warrior. He was literally just an ordinary office worker who spent his daily commute watching online videos about farming and cooking. After wishing for a peaceful life, he somehow got transported into a fantasy world filled with flying dragons. Guided by a newbie system, he leaned hard into the pastoral farming lifestyle. The village was protected by a special time barrier, which extended his time perception and allowed him to endlessly grind stat increases in non-combat skills like farming, hunting, forging, and meditation. But Lu Ping flat out refused to learn sword skills. He completely rejected the idea of fighting the Demon King. The system got so ridiculously annoyed by his stubbornness that it literally crashed and disappeared entirely. The magical AI quit its job faster than Henry Cavill returning as Superman. Content with his quiet, isolated lifestyle, Lu Ping ignored every single previous system warning, demanding he leave the village. He decided he was just going to live right there forever. Wrapping up a long day of farming, he is about to gather some firewood when he realizes he left his favorite axe, De Zhuang, deep in the woods. Suddenly, the sky turns pitch black. Massive dark clouds and crackling lightning fill the air as Elizabeth violently descends from the heavens. She proudly declares that she has finally found the legendary hero. Lu Ping is completely unaware of her terrifying, godlike presence. He looks up at the apocalyptic dark magic storm, assumes it is just a really bad rainstorm, and starts frantically sprinting back home. He completely ignores the ultimate boss of the world because he is desperately trying to save his drying clothes and his dried fish from getting ruined. Bro has his priorities completely locked in. And high above, Demon Queen Elizabeth just floats there, silently watching his little cottage in absolute confusion. Lu Ping breathes a massive sigh of relief because he actually managed to save his precious dried fish and sausages from the storm. His moment of culinary triumph is instantly ruined when his electronic dog ManhwaKey starts aggressively barking at the sky. Lu Ping casually looks up, spots Demon Queen Elizabeth ominously hovering overhead, and turns to his robot dog to ask exactly what that thing is. Calling the supreme ruler of the Dark Realm a thing is certainly a bold choice. That is like looking at a Category 5 hurricane and calling it a mild draft. Elizabeth is highly offended by the casual disrespect. She loudly declares she is going to verify if he is actually the prophesied hero once and for all, violently launching Holy Sword Alpha straight down toward him. The legendary blade ignores physics entirely, automatically flying directly into Lu Ping's hands thanks to its inherent tracking and recognition system. Watching this unfold, Elizabeth notes that while the weapon undeniably recognizes him, his magic sensing abilities are literally worse than an ordinary foot soldier. Naturally, she assumes he is just a master of deception concealing his true, terrifying strength. Refusing to be underestimated, she declares herself the strongest demon queen in history and vows to completely obliterate him where he stands. She starts charging up Abyss Magic Extinction, filling the sky with multiple high-level destruction magic circles. Down on the ground, Lu Ping is having a full-blown internal meltdown. He cannot comprehend how the final boss of the entire world managed to spawn inside the supposedly safe newbie village. The universe really just bypassed his farming simulator and dropped him straight into Elden Ring. He desperately tries to silence ManhwaKey, begging the dog to stop barking and provoking the apocalyptic magic lady in the sky. But then, a wave of pure, unadulterated resignation washes over him. He realizes that if the Demon Queen is right here in his front yard, this encounter was completely inevitable even without leaving the village. So, he makes the most logical choice for a former corporate office worker facing absolute doom. He just gives up. Lu Ping casually tosses the legendary Holy Sword Alpha onto the grass, turns his back on the ultimate evil, and walks inside his little house. He firmly closes the door, deciding he would rather just peacefully perish alongside his home. From Elizabeth's perspective in the sky, this looks entirely different. She completely misinterprets his quiet retreat as an act of supreme, unfathomable arrogance. To her, he is boldly inviting her to hit him with everything she has. She is left utterly baffled by the serene, accepting smile he gave her right before shutting the door in her face. As her cataclysmic magic finally descends to wipe his cottage off the map, an unexpected defender steps up. ManhwaKey the robot dog completes its automated threat calculations. The little electronic pet suddenly transforms, entering a hidden battle mode by unfolding an advanced, heavy missile artillery array straight out of its back. The dog fires a massive, high-tech rocket barrage directly into the sky to violently intercept the destructive magical attack. Bro really just brought an ICBM to a wizard fight. As ManhwaKey continues barking aggressively outside, Elizabeth glares down in pure contempt. She angrily accuses the supposed hero of arrogantly relying on an advanced magical tool with awakened sentience to do his dirty work. Loudly declaring that absolutely everything is inferior before her supreme might, she decides to just end the confrontation right then and there. She claims she has completely lost interest in probing the hero any further and unleashes apocalyptic magic. Elizabeth casts Earth Recasting, a devastating high-level spell meant to violently destroy the entire landscape. But ManhwaKey is not just a standard household appliance. The robotic dog quickly processes trillions of threat calculations and counters her ultimate attack by deploying literal quantum mechanical black holes. The miniature black hole completely swallows and nullifies her cataclysmic magic, instantly clearing the dark sky. Elizabeth is left floating there in disbelief that her apocalyptic spell was just erased from existence. Naturally, she assumes the legendary hero perfectly calculated and countered her magic from inside his home. Meanwhile, Luping is literally just lying flat on his bed, fully prepared to die at any given second. Descending from the cleared sky, Elizabeth starts laughing maniacally. She openly admits that she severely underestimated her opponent and slowly extends her razor-sharp claws. She even throws in a warning for him not to get conceited, bragging that she has only used less than 30% of her full power so far. She proudly proclaims that all of his desperate efforts are entirely useless. Calling the hero an impudent scoundrel, she unleashes her ultimate, powered-up demon god form. Her physical strength and dark magical energy drastically skyrocket as she charges straight at ManhwaKey. Dropping the classic anime villain excuse when the first attack fails is definitely a choice, but Frisia would be incredibly proud. An entire hour passes. Luping spends that entire hour sleeping peacefully in his bed. He finally wakes up with a groggy yawn. He looks around, genuinely wondering if he has already died and crossed over into the afterlife. But nope, he quickly realizes he is still completely safe inside his own bedroom. Noticing how eerily quiet it has become outside, Luping slowly walks toward the front door. He genuinely wonders if the demon queen got bored and left, or if she is still waiting out there like a total maniac. He carefully peeks his head outside. After an apparently brutal and prolonged hour-long battle, the dust has finally settled. Elizabeth reaches out, grabs ManhwaKey right by the head, and violently crushes the robotic dog with her bare hands. Luping screams ManhwaKey's name in pure shock. Standing over the wreckage, Elizabeth looks right at him. She mockingly apologizes for destroying the precious magical tool he was supposedly so incredibly proud of. Absolutely terrified and completely out of combat options, Luping instantly switches to diplomacy mode. He desperately suggests that maybe they should just sit down and talk things out like reasonable people. Trembling in her ultimate demon god form, Elizabeth has completely pushed herself past her absolute limits. She stares at the supposed hero, genuinely wondering if this humiliating defeat is her foretold ending. Her legs give out and she collapses directly onto the grass. Luping completely panics and immediately runs over to help. He frantically asks if she is okay, but the second he catches her, her imposing demonic armor starts dissipating into thin smoke. Suddenly, the absolute ruler of the Dark Continent is completely naked in his arms. Luping instantly gets a massive nosebleed from the overwhelming power of this godly blessing. That should have been me. Later that night, Elizabeth groggily wakes up to find herself firmly bound by handcuffs, lying on a bed inside Luping's house. She believes this sick, twisted hero has imprisoned her just to cruelly display his total superiority instead of simply finishing her off. Refusing to be a helpless trophy, she aggressively channels her remaining dark magic to break free. But the handcuffs violently snap back with a massive anti-magic force. Elizabeth is stunned, immediately assuming these cheap metal restraints are actually another set of unknown, legendary artifacts. She looks around the room and spots some incredibly odd items on his shelf, specifically a random red electronic sphere and a deck of collectible game cards. She solemnly concludes that this hero is far more wicked and impossibly powerful than she ever could have imagined. The door suddenly opens and Luping casually strolls in carrying a tray of hot food. He cheerfully greets her and immediately tries to do some desperate damage control. He explains that he only used the handcuffs purely out of caution because she is so incredibly formidable, and he openly offers to unlock them right now so they can clear up any misunderstandings. Elizabeth, completely trapped in her own villain mindset, assumes this is a complex psychological threat. She fiercely glares at him and declares she will never, ever beg for mercy if he intends to kill her. Luping literally just wants to survive this encounter, and unlocks the supposedly legendary anti-magic handcuffs. Recognizing that her current situation is highly unfavorable, Elizabeth makes the tactical decision to yield temporarily while privately plotting her brutal revenge. Luping politely suggests she get some rest. Internally, his logic is completely chaotic but surprisingly valid. He specifically avoided killing her because he is terrified she might possess a second-phase resurrection skill. Plus, he is a former corporate worker who could never actually murder a person in cold blood. His master plan is to just become her best friend, so he can finally resume his quiet, pastoral farming lifestyle. Trying to lighten the heavy mood, Ping dramatically laughs and gestures over his shoulder. Elizabeth immediately interprets this harmless gesture as further cruel mockery of her total defeat, turning his attention to the scattered, broken pieces of ManhwaKey, deeply sighing as he notes what an absolute mess his poor pet has become. Sitting on the bed, Elizabeth asks if ManhwaKey was Ping's most powerful magical tool. Ping nervously rubs the back of his neck and replies that he actually just built the ManhwaKey recently. In his mind he thinks, what magic tool? It's just a little thing he built here out of pure boredom. Elizabeth's villain brain starts racing. Since he already unlocked her handcuffs, she assumes he just lost his main weapon and is completely defenseless. She secretly begins gathering abyss magic, infinite magic, aggressively siphoning mana to rapidly recover her strength. Putting on an award-winning fake smile, she offers a totally hollow apology for breaking his pet, but Ping just shrugs, pops out ManhwaKey's little memory card, and opens up a nearby cabinet. Inside is a stockpile of identical spare robotic bodies. He slides the memory card right into a fresh chassis, instantly reactivating ManhwaKey like absolutely nothing happened. Ping casually explains that he has to keep backups on hand because his little companion can be quite naughty sometimes. Bro literally treats resurrecting an apocalyptic defense mechanism like swapping out batteries in a TV remote. Elizabeth is absolutely terrified. She trembles in shock at the ominous, godlike display of reusable automated life, genuinely believing she is trapped in the lair of a supreme evil. But before she can spiral any further, a mouth-watering aroma completely hijacks her attention. Ping proudly presents her with piping hot plates of regular meat porridge and regular dumplings, genuinely hoping the meal will help her warm up. Elizabeth scoffs, proudly claiming that her elite, transcendent state totally exempts her from the mortal need for food. Right on cue, her stomach violently rumbles so loud it echoes through the room. Ignoring the sheer awkwardness, Ping softly urges her to try the dish. He made it entirely from his own homegrown produce. Elizabeth cautiously picks up a fork and takes a tiny bite of a dumpling. Ping watches her anxiously, sweating over whether a supreme ruler would even enjoy his simple village meals. Inwardly, Elizabeth is completely astounded. She notes that the meat juices literally burst on her tongue like fireworks. The pure, rich flavor is absolutely packed with a terrifyingly high concentration of raw magical energy. But then the delayed fuse finally hits. After just a few more bites, her entire face suddenly flushes bright, atomic red. An intense, overwhelming wave of pure spice completely paralyzes her. She demands to know exactly what he just fed her. Ping just blinks in confusion. He calmly explains that he just added some chili to suit his personal taste, innocently asking if she cannot handle spicy food. Burning from the intense heat and sweating profusely, Elizabeth reaches a horrifying, irreversible conclusion. This monstrous hero did not spare her life out of mercy. He kept her alive solely to use her as a helpless test subject for his cruel, agonizing research experiments. Ping hustles back into the room holding a steaming bowl of century egg and lean pork congee. He gently explains that this specific dish is meant to clear heat and reduce internal fire. Elizabeth stares at the bowl like it is the Holy Grail. She genuinely believes it is a literal antidote, but the second the congee touches her lips, an overwhelming wave of profound, absolute peace washes over her entire soul. Suddenly, all her grand ambitions of world domination and endless conflict seem entirely insignificant. Weaponized spice followed by consuming the ultimate comfort food literally triggers a spiritual breakthrough. She instantly levels up, advancing her status to Elizabeth, the 3-star demon queen. Sitting on the bed, Elizabeth fiercely demands that Ping finally reveal his true demands. Ping nervously rubs his neck and simply suggests researching how a hero and a demon queen could just coexist peacefully. Naturally, Elizabeth's villain brain completely misinterprets this. She assumes he is acting as a mastermind, directly challenging her to grow stronger just to see if she could ever actually defeat him. Trying to keep the peace, Ping quickly promises to completely accommodate her and prepare tons of delicious meals. She somehow completely misunderstands this too, doubling down on the idea that he is just pushing her limits. Frustrated by the intense mind games, Elizabeth waves her hand and tells him to never mind, just forget it. Ping completely panics. Hearing the words forget it makes him terrified that diplomacy has failed and she still wants to straight up murder him. Instead, Elizabeth dramatically stands up on the bed. She proudly declares that she agrees to his twisted proposition to jointly pursue the absolute pinnacle of strength. But she follows it up with a deeply menacing glare, warning him that her dignity must never be violated under the strict threat of mutual destruction. Ping, a guy who literally only wants a quiet life, aggressively agrees to all her terms without a single second thought. He eagerly promises to keep bringing her everything delicious, and she smugly replies that he can feel free to conduct his research on her anytime. Bro accidentally negotiated himself into a becoming wife of the literal apocalypse. Fast forward one entire year. Luping is outside getting his daily chores done, routinely splitting firewood on a stump. Oh, and he is using the legendary Holy Sword Alpha as his everyday chopping hatchet. He pauses to reflect on how much the village has actually changed ever since Elizabeth shattered the protective time barrier on day one. With the barrier completely gone, the local time synced with the real world and the spatial concealment totally vanished. Now, the village is fully exposed in the middle of a deadly wilderness, where highly formidable, bloodthirsty monsters roam freely. However, absolutely none of those monsters dare to approach the property. They are all completely terrified of the overwhelming, oppressive aura constantly leaking from the demon queen inside the house. Luping realizes with quiet irony that he now completely depends on the final boss's presence just for his own daily safety. He is suddenly interrupted by Elizabeth loudly shouting from the second-floor window, demanding to know where her lunch is. Like a lovely wife, Luping yells that he is coming right away. He sprints back to the kitchen. Luping fully accepts that keeping the demon queen around is his only viable survival strategy for the monster-infested wilderness. Meanwhile, the supreme ruler of darkness is currently lounging on his couch, watching recorded television videos like a glorified iPad kid. She casually asks if his system has any new updates. Wearing a bare apron, Luping replies that the system is long gone, and announces that lunch is officially served. Elizabeth immediately starts complaining. She grumbles that the potato chips he gave her are like a slow-acting poison, making her increasingly lazy. Luping casually drops the bombshell that potato chips actually cause severe weight gain. Elizabeth gasps in horror as she looks down and pinches a newly formed roll of stomach fat. But instead of hitting the treadmill, she just flexes her god-tier abilities. She instantly activates deep-sea magic negative attribute conversion. This highly specialized spell literally vaporizes all of her accumulated body fat and converts it directly into concentrated, raw magic power. Her perfectly slim figure is instantly restored, leaving Luping staring in absolute amazement. If they could bottle and sell that spell in Hollywood, Ozempic would file for bankruptcy by Tuesday morning. Sitting at the dining table, Elizabeth gives a smile and says she figured out his sinister depravity trap before happily stuffing her face. Luping just keeps serving plate after plate as she eats with terrifying voracity. As he offers to make even more, he mentally notes that they are probably going to be living together for a very long time. But Elizabeth's villain complex acts up again, leading her to wildly suspect that he is just aggressively fattening her up for the slaughter. When Luping innocently offers dessert, she violently snaps. She angrily accuses him of treating her like a literal pig, loudly boasting that she has achieved more than 10 realm breakthroughs in the past year thanks to his magical meals. Fully fired up, she demands an immediate, all-out death battle to prove her supreme might. However, all of that apocalyptic aggression completely vanishes the exact microsecond Luping presents a plate of her absolute favorite cherry pudding. The mighty demon queen literally leaps into the air with pure joy. Luping quietly notes just how frighteningly easy it is to calm down the world's most dangerous entity with a simple sugar rush. Meanwhile, right outside in the deadly wilderness, an old, white-haired warrior and a blonde female knight are frantically running for their lives, heavily panting from sheer exhaustion. Many masked, purple-hooded assassins are relentlessly pursuing them through the trees like a bad omen. Closing the distance, the assassins activate spatial tearing to cast a deadly spell known as Nail Cage. Intricate, dark spatial webs violently erupt all around the fleeing duo. Before they can even react, the terrifying dark magic slices through the fabric of space itself, trapping both of them completely inside a restrictive, inescapable net. Still trapped out in the deadly wilderness, the old warrior desperately urges his daughter Evil to head straight toward the safety of the nearest town. He promises to stay behind and hold off their terrifying pursuers. Evil stubbornly refuses to just escape alone and abandon him. Her father immediately guilt-trips her, loudly reminding her of a solemn vow he made to her mother to protect her at absolutely all costs. A purple-hooded apostle from the Dark Guild catches up and summons a massive, destructive sphere of blue flames known as Ghost Fire. Determined to end this fight as quickly as possible, the old warrior unleashes his absolute strongest move, incredibly powerful golden sword slash that cleanly severs the Dark Apostle perfectly in half. But victory is immediately cancelled. The Apostle's dark liquid body just squishes back together, violently reassembling and fusing with a second apostle. The two of them rapidly mutate into a horrifying, multi-masked blue slime monster with drastically enhanced physical strength. Refusing to back down, Evil draws her bow and fires off natural arrow, launching a rapid volley of glowing green energy projectiles. The mutant apostle casually blocks her entire attack without even flinching. Her father panics, desperately warning her that he has absolutely no idea how long he can handle these dark guild freaks, and begs her to hurry up and run. The massive creature responds by violently slamming the ground, unleashing a heavy shockwave that easily knocks the pair off their feet. Following up instantly, the monster launches a brutal fiery strike that completely shatters the father's broadsword into pieces and slams his body hard into a solid rock wall. Coughing up blood and barely hanging on, he begs Evil to run away. Instead of fleeing, Evil completely gives up and offers to surrender quietly as long as the monster spares her father's life. The monster ignores her plea, roaring wildly as it mutates even further into a massive, towering blue slime blob of impending death. Just as the slime is about to obliterate them, the earth violently shakes. A colossal, skyscraper-sized beast known as Lord Mammoth casually steps on and effortlessly crushes the mutant apostle flat under its giant foot. But the bizarre chain of command does not stop there. Sitting comfortably on top of Lord Mammoth's head is a giant, robed yellow frog known as Immortal Frog. And sitting right on top of the frog's head is ManhwaKey, the robotic dog, perfectly chilling inside his little doghouse. Looking down at the situation, the giant frog casually declares that the danger has been completely cleared. The frog politely asks ManhwaKey exactly how they should deal with these two harmless humans trembling on the ground below. ManhwaKey computes the situation and firmly instructs the giant frog not to harm any harmless humans. The little robotic dog announces that he will personally scoop them up and bring these two terrified strays back for his master to deal with. Evil jolts awake inside a strange, unfamiliar bedroom. Panic instantly sets in as she screams about the slime monster, suddenly remembering her father's critical, life-threatening injuries. Terrified that he is going to die without immediate medical treatment, she scrambles out of bed. She rushes down the hallway and bursts through the front door, desperately calling out his name. But instead of finding him on his deathbed, she steps outdoors to an absolutely unhinged sight. Her father is standing in the middle of the yard flexing every single muscle in his body right in front of Lu Ping. Off to the side, Elizabeth marches up and angrily kicks ManhwaKey across the grass for daring to bring absolute riffraff to their home. Meanwhile, Lu Ping is standing there marveling at the old man, genuinely praising his incredibly sturdy frame. He activated a physical technique called Battle Soul Burning just to enhance his muscle mass and aura to a complete 100% output. Evil stares in sheer disbelief and demands to know what on earth he is doing. Her father proudly admits he stripped down to impress their powerful saviors. Elizabeth immediately glares at Evil, harshly asserting her total dominance by proudly stating she came first. The literal demon queen is acting like situationship is getting aggressively jealous over unexpected house guests, desperately wanting to avoid a conflict in his front yard. Lu Ping politely invites everyone inside to sit down and talk. In the cozy living room, Lu Ping serves up cups of his homemade barley tea. Evil stares at the cup and asks if this is the miraculous potion her father spoke of. Lu Ping casually laughs it off, explaining that the miraculous healing liquid he gave her father earlier was literally just cold well water. The man cured near-fatal, magical blunt force trauma with a glass of tap water. While this is happening, Elizabeth is sitting there intensely side-eyeing the situation. Her villain brain is working overtime, wondering what kind of twisted, sadistic experiments Lu Ping wants to conduct on these two weak humans. She literally asks herself, "Can I not satisfy you anymore?" Previously, ManhwaKey had carried the two brutally wounded humans back to the house, where Lu Ping effortlessly patched them up. Looking back on it, Evil's father firmly states that if it weren't for Lu Ping, he absolutely would not have lived to see his daughter again. Lu Ping waves it off, assuring them there is absolutely no need to be overly polite. Filled with immense gratitude, her father thanks Lu Ping and knocks back the tea with Evil. Instantly, a blindingly radiant golden aura completely envelopes the two of them. Their minds are violently transported into a serene, endless golden field. Lu Ping's casual homemade barley tea actually contains such dense magical energy that it triggers a massive, instantaneous realm breakthrough. Her father aggressively levels up from a 3-star archmage directly to a 4-star archmage. Evil jumps from a 1-star mage all the way to a 1-star archmage. The sheer power of the tea forcibly awakens her dormant maternal elf bloodline, literally causing her to instantly grow pointed elf ears right there on the couch. Starbucks could easily charge at least $30 for a seasonal drink that successfully alters your genetic makeup. Deeply satisfied and glowing with raw power, the father and daughter sit there thinking nothing else in the entire world matters right now. Ping casually offers them some more tea. Her father frantically refuses, politely saying that is really more than enough. In his mind, he has fully accepted that Ping is a literal, walking god. Ping just nods and says all right. Internally, he actually wanted to offer them some nice snacks to go with their tea. But he remembers that Elizabeth completely hoarded all the snacks in the house, and trying to take them back from the Demon Queen would absolutely cause her to lose her temper. Elizabeth glares sideways at the guests, claiming every single snack and drink in the house as her property and warning them not to even think about it. Ping nervously apologizes for having nothing left to serve them and pivots the conversation, asking Uncle Burrs how they ended up getting attacked. Burrs explains that the violent pursuit all stems from the elf bloodline inside Evil's body. Evil chimes in to say her mother was the saintess of the elf race, and her parents fell in love and had her despite strict intermarriage bans. Ping puts the pieces together and asks if the elves are the ones hunting them down. Elizabeth immediately interrupts, proudly noting that the Demon Queen completely abolished all intermarriage bans when she unified the world. Burrs nods, explaining that his wife actually sacrificed her own freedom and returned to the elf Holy Land just to protect them. Because of her sacrifice, the elf tribe decided to spare Burrs and Evil. They lived peacefully until envoys of the Dark Guild from the Demon Realm finally tracked them down. Hearing this, Ping slowly turns his head and gives Elizabeth a massive, suspicious side-eye. Elizabeth angrily confronts him for daring to question her innocence, then fiercely demands Burrs explain exactly why the Dark Guild is capturing elves. Burrs drops the ultimate bombshell, revealing that the Dark Guild is conducting twisted experiments on elves specifically to resurrect Demon Queen Elizabeth. Getting abducted by a dark cult just to resurrect a goth mommy who is still alive is truly a terrible way to go. Elizabeth cutely snaps at Ping, yelling that she knows exactly what he is thinking. Ping quickly calms her down, assuring her he knows she is completely innocent in this mess. Elizabeth sits back, deeply confused, thinking about how much has happened in just 1 year. She asks Burrs who exactly told the world that the Demon Queen was dead. Burrs casually states that Demon Queen Elizabeth has been missing for 500 years. Ping is absolutely shook. She has literally been sitting on his couch eating cherry pudding for just over a year. Elizabeth asks what the rumors even say about her supposed death. Evil adds that historical literature claims the legendary hero battled Elizabeth in an epic, month-long war, ultimately sacrificing himself to kill her. Violently outraged by this fake news, Elizabeth unleashes a terrifying, blood-red aura filled with screaming skull phantoms. She furiously declares the story completely false, radiating such an intense killing intent that Burrs and Evil literally start foaming at the mouth. Trying to clear the air, Ping casually reveals that he is actually the legendary hero and she is the Demon Queen. Just dropping world-shattering lore over empty teacups like it is a piece of local neighborhood gossip. Elizabeth completely misinterprets his casual reveal as a cruel mockery of her defeat. She furiously slams the table and storms off into her bedroom. Burrs nervously looks at Ping and asks about his future plans now that the truth is out. Ping is having a total internal panic attack. He finally does the math and realizes that when Elizabeth shattered the newbie village time barrier, the spatial time desynchronized. 500 years passed in the outside world, while only 1 single year elapsed inside his little bubble. Later that night, Evil and Burrs are tucked into bed in the spare room. Evil romantically wonders aloud if the Demon Queen secretly fell in love with the hero 500 years ago. Burrs whispers back that they are basically just ants trespassing in the House of Gods, and they should stay quiet. Suddenly, a terrifying, menacing shadow of Ping looms large in the doorway. He stares them down in the darkness, coldly asking exactly why they are still awake. Standing in the dimly lit doorway holding a simple deck of playing cards, Ping casually invites his wide-awake guests to play a game. They gather around a single flickering candle as Ping cheerfully explains the rules and asks if they understand. Evil is already sweating. She senses a terrifyingly sinister aura radiating from the completely ordinary deck of cards and cautiously asks for the game's name. Realizing that the traditional name Landlord might confuse these fantasy locals, Ping decides to localize it and casually names it Dragon Fight. Hearing that title, Burrs and Evil instantly scream in sheer panic. Meanwhile, a miniature Elizabeth is actually spying on the entire room from afar, using her high-level magic concealment technique to shrink her presence and observe completely undetected. Oblivious to the escalating terror, Ping clarifies the rules, explaining that 2 heroes must unite to battle a dragon, and their roles will be decided simply by drawing cards. Burrs leans over and frantically whispers to Evil that this is clearly a sadistic test to determine whether they will live or die. In their completely warped, fearful perspective, Ping's friendly smile transforms into the terrifying visage of an intimidating overlord urging them to choose their fate carefully. Telling Evil there is absolutely no time for hesitation, Burs firmly instructs her to grab her cards. The moment Evil's fingers brush the deck, a blinding electric blue energy violently flares out. They are instantly sucked directly into a swirling, alternate spatial realm created entirely by Ping's cards. Just the simple act of lifting the cards completely drains every single drop of Evil's magic power reserves, forcing her to lean on her father just to stay conscious. Looking down at his starting hand, Ping sees it is absolutely stacked with high-ranking cards and kings. He politely asks if either of them wants to take on the role of the dragon, but both of them violently shake in terror and quickly decline the offer. Since they passed, Ping declares he will not hold back and be polite, eagerly drawing the extra cards for himself. He casually starts the game by playing a simple 8, passing the turn over to Burs. Desperate to pass this horrifying trial and survive the night, Burs looks at his cards and comes to a grim, terrifying realization. Actually playing a card in this twisted realm requires directly sacrificing his own physical life force. With no other choice, he slams down a jack card. He watches in pure horror as raw blue magic violently drains from his body, leaving his hand completely shriveled and rapidly aged. Playing a casual game of cards with your host should not cost you 10 years off your actual lifespan. But I guess inflation really is hitting every single market these days. Assuring Evil that he is completely fine, Burs takes full charge of the twisted game. Evil nervously passes her turn. After carefully calculating his stacked hand, Ping actually decides to pass as well just to maintain his tactical advantage. Burs is completely stunned by the pass. Internally, he is completely freaking out, fully realizing that the game is steadily consuming his remaining vitality, and resolves to play all his cards as fast as possible to escape this nightmare. Desperate to empty his hand as fast as humanly possible, Burs throws down a multi-pair card combination known as Flying Dragon. But heavy combos come with a brutal price. The play violently extracts his physical life force, draining it straight from his leg and causing him intense pain. The card combination manifests a massive, roaring blue spectral dragon right in the middle of the room. Observing all of this from above, miniature Elizabeth watches as the spectral dragon charges up and unleashes a colossal energy beam. Both father and daughter are left completely paralyzed in absolute shock. Playing a casual card game with your family usually ruins relationships, but this one is literally costing limbs and spawning laser-breathing mythical beasts. Ping casually asks if anyone wants to claim the turn before starting a new round by playing a simple 3. Evil passes, allowing Ping to smoothly follow up with a 10. Burs declines to play. With neither terrified guest able to beat his board, Ping flashes a sinister smile. He confidently plays a massive straight sequence, dropping a 6 all the way through a queen. The cards instantly erupt into a violent blue energy wave, unleashing a terrifying, room-clearing tide known as the sky-destroying wave. The entire living room completely fills with deep, illusory water. Burs and Evil are completely submerged, violently gasping for air and panicking because the flood prevents them from making any further moves. Not giving them a single second to breathe, Ping immediately follows up with a full house, slamming down 3 of a kind with a pair. The play instantly summons a terrifying ghost chariot drawn by menacing phantom horses. Burs is absolutely terrified, bracing himself for the end. But this time, Evil fiercely steps in. She loudly declares that she will absolutely not hide behind her father's back anymore and slams down her very own 3 of a kind with a pair. Channeling the play, Evil summons her own ghostly chariot drawn by phantom horses to clash right back at Ping. Inside the spectral card realm, a massive, violent explosion erupts as the phantom chariots brutally crash into each other. Burs frantically checks on Evil, who manages to confirm she is completely unhurt. Ping smiles, genuinely commending their fierce determination to protect one another by breaking cards, but casually notes that it is far too late to stop what comes next. Sensing an incredibly ominous aura, Burs, Evil, and the hidden miniature Elizabeth watch in absolute dread as Ping lays down both Joker cards. This ultimate play summons the Supreme Clown King, a terrifying 3-star demon-level entity that violently tears open a dimensional rift right in the middle of the sky. Bro just dropped the equivalent of Exodia to win a friendly game of Go Fish. Absolutely unhinged behavior. The Clown King immediately locks eyes with Elizabeth hiding in the shadows and aggressively asks what exactly she is peeking at. Brandishing a glowing, cursed dagger, the Supreme Clown King menacingly threatens to kill her on the spot. Elizabeth is completely stunned. She realizes Ping just casually summoned a creature perfectly matching the 3-star demon god stage that she herself only barely achieved through aggressively eating his magical cooking. Meanwhile, Burrs violently coughs up blood as his life force is critically drained by the game. Observing his extreme distress, Luping completely misreads the room and assumes Burrs' previous physical injuries are just acting up again. Luping glances over at Burrs' hand and sees he is still holding incredibly strong cards. Luping mistakenly concludes that the old warrior had simply been letting him win the whole time out of pure courtesy. He quickly gathers up the cards, completely dissolving the terrifying spatial realm back into his normal living room. He sincerely apologizes for all the trouble and gently encourages the traumatized duo to get some rest. Relieved to actually still be alive, Burrs and Evil sit there realizing this supposedly kind hero is completely and utterly impossible to comprehend. Elizabeth is quietly seething, fully assuming the entire apocalyptic card match was a highly subtle, calculated tactic designed specifically to threaten her. The next morning rolls around. As Burrs and Evil frantically prepare to depart, Luping politely offers to let them stay a little longer. Burrs aggressively declines. Luping smiles and gifts Evil a fresh box of his realm-breaking homemade barley tea. To top it off, he hands Burrs the entire cursed deck of playing cards as a fun little memento, humbly claiming his own card skills are just way too poor to keep them. Gifting a man the exact demonic artifact that just drained his life force and aged him 10 years is the ultimate power move. Highly annoyed by this entire interaction, Elizabeth furiously orders the guests to leave immediately. The father and daughter absolutely sprint for their lives into the wilderness as Luping cheerfully waves goodbye from the porch. Then Elizabeth demands Luping get back in the kitchen to prepare her food. Sprint running across the open plains, Burrs desperately urges Evil to keep moving. Evil is completely out of breath and begs him to stop, collapsing from sheer exhaustion. Burrs looks back, heavily reflecting on the absolute trauma of surviving Luping's deadly card game test, immediately followed by Elizabeth's terrifying midnight threats. Evil reaches up and touches the glowing red curse mark throbbing on her neck. She remembers Elizabeth's final, chilling warning that if they ever disclosed the existence of the Demon Queen or the legendary hero, the mark would instantly decapitate them. Having a death band around your neck with terms is definitely wild, but honestly still less restrictive than a standard corporate terms of service agreement. Burrs looks around and is suddenly confused. He notices they have already reached the exact spot in the wilderness where they were originally rescued. He marvels at his own speed, completely unaware that it was actually ManhwaKey who secretly transported them back while they were panicking. Sensing a heavy, dark aura nearby, Burrs warns Evil that high-level demons are closing in and insists they need to move immediately. Hiding nearby, ManhwaKey also notices the terrifying presence rapidly approaching. The robotic dog quickly opens a spatial portal, calculating that it's stupid facing superior demon only to going back and getting beaten up by Elizabeth again, and just jumps right inside the portal. Suddenly, a massive, violent rift completely tears open in the sky right above Burrs and Evil. A heavily armed squad of Dark Guild apostles drops down, led by a menacing, red-horned Great Apostle classified at the 2-star Great Demon Spirit level. Evil instantly recognizes the overwhelming, hopeless power gap. Knowing they are only sitting at the 1-star Grand Mage level, she begs her father to run away and just leave her behind to buy him time. But Burrs just stands up and smirks. After witnessing the absolute reality-breaking godly power of Luping and Elizabeth up close, these supposedly terrifying apostles just look like total chumps. He proudly stands his ground and boldly invokes his old, legendary title as Iron-Hearted Bess of the Heroes. Instead of drawing his sword, Burrs pulls out the cursed deck of playing cards Luping gifted him. He dramatically draws 4 cards and activates card summoning to unleash the 4-bomb arrow god descends. Throwing down a literal 4 of a kind against a high-level demonic death squad is the ultimate Vegas high roller energy. The cards explode with magical energy, summoning a massive, glowing green elf goddess that looks exactly like Evil's mother. Following Burrs' command, the spectral goddess draws back her massive bow and fires a devastating, blinding green energy beam. The overwhelming energy arrow instantly obliterates the entire squad of apostles into dust and cleanly blows the great apostle head off. Completely drained, Burrs falls to his knees in exhaustion. Looking at the absolute devastation a simple poker hand just caused, he casually remarks that he should probably just officially change his profession. And just like that, the most broken new combat class on the hero's continent was born, giving rise to the legendary Cardmaster. A week later, Luping is just chilling, enjoying some fresh slices of watermelon he specially bred using his magic hybrid method. He is incredibly proud of his harvest, but honestly, he is feeling deeply restless. Meeting actual visitors from the outside world sparked a serious desire to travel, but he still fully believes he is way too weak to explore the monster-infested wilderness alone. Lounging nearby, Elizabeth notices his completely gloomy mood and casually offers to take him on a trip outside. Lu Ping is absolutely thrilled at the thought of having the Demon Queen's personal protection and eagerly agrees. Elizabeth instructs him to go change his clothes. When he comes back, she actually compliments his impressive sewing skills, genuinely loving the stylish new outfit he crafted for her. Bro is out here acting as a master farmer, a 5-star chef, and a high-end fashion designer. The absolute pinnacle of stay-at-home husband material. Wang Kai starts barking in the yard, but Elizabeth just snaps her fingers and effortlessly casts transfer door. A swirling blue dimensional portal violently tears open. She explains that this gateway leads directly to the nearest town. Amazed by the sheer convenience of her magic, Lu Ping pauses right in front of the vortex to ask a few questions and set some strict boundaries. Before departing, he outlines 3 essential conditions she absolutely must follow outside. First, she must not abandon him. Second, she has to control her volatile temper. Third, she should act low-key. Still deeply anxious about losing her protection now that the village barrier is permanently gone, Lu Ping makes her swear that she will actually return home with him afterward. Elizabeth agrees without a single moment of hesitation. In her mind, she admits that the outside world means absolutely nothing to her until she officially defeats him in combat. However, she makes one strict, non-negotiable demand. Upon their return, he must grant her one request and make her a super deluxe assorted fruit pudding. Lu Ping happily agrees to the easiest hostage negotiation of his entire life. Completely reassured, Lu Ping confidently steps through the transfer door right alongside Elizabeth. The portal instantly snaps shut behind them, completely leaving poor Wang Kai abandoned in the yard to guard the house. On the other side, the duo emerges directly into a thriving, beautifully sunlit town filled with grand fantasy architecture. Lu Ping and Elizabeth arrive at Boaster Town, a totally neutral settlement. Lu Ping is absolutely vibrating with excitement. He marvels at the lively atmosphere, comparing it to stepping straight into a brand new world, and enthusiastically points out all the fantasy equipment shops and ingredient stalls to Elizabeth. Elizabeth just looks around and smugly observes that absolutely nothing has changed in 500 years. She takes immense pride in the fact that her past reign established equal standing among all races simply by suppressing all chaotic forces through absolute, terrifying strength. Turns out the secret to world peace was just to have a baddie on throne. Modern politicians should really take notes. Wandering the market, Lu Ping enthusiastically approaches a young girl selling toys. He picks up a stuffed animal, genuinely praises the delicate stitching, and asks if she made it herself. The girl happily offers him a lower price if he wants to buy it. But before they can finish the transaction, a massive pig-headed beast man from the local beast gang violently kicks over the market stall, scattering the stuffed toys everywhere. The beast man grabs the young stall owner, a girl with glasses named Annie, and aggressively demands overdue protection money for her church. As the orphans behind her start crying in terror, Annie bravely argues that the gang has literally never protected them. She warns him that the church belongs to the nuns, and he will be in trouble the second they return. The beast man just sneers, countering that his gang controls the street and requires monthly tributes regardless. He threatens to destroy their already broken church and drive all the orphans out into the streets. Unable to watch this fantasy mafia shakedown, Lu Ping bravely steps in and screams for the pig to stop it. The beast man slowly turns and glares menacingly at him. Instantly regretting his heroic outburst, Lu Ping silently begs Elizabeth for aid, but Elizabeth completely ignores his pleading eyes. She genuinely believes he is just pretending to be weak to sadistically toy with ordinary people, and she flatly refuses to stoop to his level. The beastman approaches and demands to know Lu Ping's intentions. Completely terrified, Lu Ping tries to pivot. He turns to the surrounding crowd for support, yelling at the bystanders to step up and condemn this pig-headed bully. Every single person in the crowd completely ignores him, awkwardly looking away like a subway car full of commuters pretending they do not hear a fight breaking out. The beastman bursts into laughter, boldly claiming that absolutely no one in this town will ever help him against the beast gang. Then, the pig makes the worst mistake of his entire life. He notices Elizabeth standing nearby. Completely enticed by her appearance, the beastman orders his gang members to beat Lu Ping to a pulp and capture her. Lu Ping desperately tries to de-escalate, rapidly offering to share his backpack specialties and snacks if they just walk away. The beastman completely dismisses the negotiation, and the gang members start closing in. Elizabeth instantly loses her mind. Her patience shatters, and she unleashes her aura, instantly turning the entire sky red as violent red lightning cracks through the clouds. Lu Ping frantically grabs her and begs her to stop, warning her that she is going to annihilate the entire town at this rate. He pleads that just scaring them is more than enough. Taking a deep breath, Elizabeth slowly calms down and smugly declares she will spare their pathetic lives solely because he asked. Watching all of this unfold from the ground, Annie stares at the terrifying high demon red aura radiating from Elizabeth. Comparing it to everything she knows, the little girl quietly states that this mysterious sister's magic is just way too powerful, and the dumb pig just wonders if it's going to rain. Unaccountably nervous after the sky just turned red, the pig beastman stammers and asks if Luping and Elizabeth are actually defending these church orphans. Luping politely asks how much the protection fee is, and the beastman demands 10 gold coins for 2 months. Elizabeth absolutely scoffs, heavily mocking the pathetically paltry sum. Luping turns to her and asks to borrow some gold, promising he will pay her back by selling his homegrown vegetables. Elizabeth immediately calls him a total fool. She refuses to let him sell her precious food for worthless shiny metal. Plus, she admits she didn't even bring any money when she teleported over to fight him in the first place. Trying to improvise, Luping offers the beastman a backpack full of homegrown produce to settle the debt instead. The pig beastman completely loses his temper, ready to attack, when a heavy pouch of gold coins violently slams right into the back of his head. An armored centaur named Hawthorne Theres from the renowned sword St. Guild Thunder Seabuckthorn steps forward. He commands the gang to take the cash and leave immediately. Recognizing Hawthorne's elite status, the beastman wisely accepts the money and retreats into the streets. Deeply grateful, Luping hands Hawthorne a bunch of bananas as a thank you gift. Hawthorne brushes it off, telling him not to worry about it. But then he shoots a lingering glance at Elizabeth and offers them a chance to partner up on a job. Annie chimes in, asking if she can help too. Hawthorne proposes a joint partnership that could completely resolve Annie's crushing financial troubles. Elizabeth is entirely over this peasant drama and just wants to leave. But Luping manages to persuade her to stick around and hear the centaur out, while Annie quickly sends the young orphans back to the safety of the church. Hawthorne guides the group into a shady local tavern, warning them to stay close. Almost immediately, a few random thugs make some highly creepy remarks about Elizabeth. She does not hesitate, instantly putting them in their place by flashing her terrifying demonic energy and later completely blaming Luping for dragging her into this mess. Hawthorne leads the group into a private VIP room to talk business. Inside, he casually drops the absolute bombshell that the 4 women sitting at the table are all actually his wives. Luping is left staring in absolute, complete disbelief. Bro really just casually assembled a fantasy harem to run his quests. Hawthorne introduces his squad. Gasha the shield warrior, Lolo the catgirl assassin, Glee the mage, and Gilia the elven archer. The wives immediately notice Elizabeth's superior attitude and start openly mocking her demeanor. Gasha bluntly calls her incredibly annoying. Elizabeth is not having it. She coldly stands her ground and proudly declares her supreme queenly identity to the room. Lolo just laughs, claiming there is something seriously wrong with her mind for calling herself a queen in a dive bar. Then Gilia the elf takes it a step too far. She looks right at Elizabeth and makes a highly disrespectful remark, belittling her ears as those of a lowly, pathetic half-breed elf. Elizabeth silently vows to absolutely destroy them if they keep pushing her. To keep the peace in tavern bloodbath, Luping quickly whips out a pudding from his bag and hands it to her. She is instantly filled with pure joy. Luping mentally praises his own preparedness. Pacifying a world-ending demon with a snack pack is a top-tier survival strategy. To protect their true identities, Luping boldly claims he is just a servant accompanying Elizabeth, an eccentric princess from a remote, isolated tribe. Lolo and Glee immediately mock her, calling her an uncivilized princess from some weird tribe that probably worships the demon queen. Luping desperately covers for her, claiming it is just her first time in the outer world and she is still adapting to the cultural differences. Hawthorne cuts the drama, demanding they get back to business. He wants these 3 to join his party in a treasure dungeon adventure. Internally, Hawthorne is completely sweating. He knows she cannot be just some tribal princess after sensing the insane level of demonic energy she leaked on the street earlier. Luping has no idea what is going on and asks Annie about treasure dungeons. He learns they are hidden magical spaces created by ancient beings, filled with elite loot. Hawthorne reveals he found one, but opening the specific spatial barrier requires exactly 8 participants. Luping counts the room and realizes their group of 3 plus Hawthorne's party of 5 perfectly meets the 8-person requirement. Annie instantly bursts into tears. She explains she is merely a 4-star magician and is terrified of dying in a dangerous dungeon. Hawthorne quickly reassures her that she literally only needs to fill the head count to unlock the door. His experienced party will handle all the actual combat, and he promises her a massive payout of tens of thousands of gold coins. Gasha smugly remarks that her husband single-handedly repelled multiple Dark Apostles when they tried to capture Gelia. Hearing the massive gold payout, Annie instantly gets happy and agrees to the raid. Risking your life in a terrifying underground crypt just because the rent is due. Honestly, millennials can deeply relate to that grind. Luping asks Elizabeth for her permission to join them. Overjoyed and completely distracted by her pudding, she agrees to let Luping decide their next move. Hawthorne then states they need to assess everyone's power levels and brings out a glowing orb. He introduces Glee's magic measurements crystal ball, a device that quantifies internal magic capacity into numerical scores. Hawthorne reveals he is a 4-star demon spirit, while his wives sit comfortably at the 4 or 5-star grand mage level. Annie nervously tests her magic first. The orb lights up with a score of 300. Glee immediately mocks the low number. Annie bursts into tears again, sobbing that her score just won't go up no matter what she does. Eager to finally see his own hidden potential, Luping confidently slaps his hand onto the crystal ball, fully believing in his status as the legendary prophesied hero. He scores a flat, absolute 0. Hawthorne is completely stunned, noting that even a pure physical martial artist would register at least something higher than a 0. Luping covers his face in complete despair, lamenting that a lifetime of rural farming has left him with 0 magical talent whatsoever. Fumbling your magic exam in front of the entire class is a level of trauma you never truly recover from. Lolo cruelly states that he is completely useless to the party. Luping replies that he is really good at farming, instantly offering them some fresh bananas to demonstrate his agricultural expertise. Glee dismisses him as a pathetic rural bumpkin, while Lolo suspiciously asks if he is really just a servant. Hawthorne ignores the circus and asks Elizabeth to try the crystal ball. She completely ignores him, still focused on her dessert. Luping desperately begs Elizabeth to please just cooperate with them so they can move on. Elizabeth gets deeply annoyed, complaining that he is dragging her into these stupid mortal games. Sighing in irritation, she aggressively presses her hand onto the crystal ball. Instantly, a blinding cataclysmic blue light completely engulfs the entire room. Absolutely terrified that exposing Elizabeth's true identity will cause an uproar, Luping frantically tries to intervene. But Elizabeth smoothly assures him she has the entire situation completely under control. She casually places her hand on Glee's magic measurements crystal ball and intentionally restrains her monstrous aura. The crystal ball lights up, displaying a highly specific reading of 8,768. This perfectly matches a 4-star demon spirit, leading Annie and Hawthorne's wives to believe she is exactly on the same power level as Hawthorne himself. Relieved that her apocalyptic identity remains safely hidden, Luping sighs as Hawthorne warmly praises her joining the party and immediately instructs Glee to initiate transportation. Glee activates a highly expensive item called Open the Teleportation Scroll. A glowing red magic circle completely engulfs all 8 party members, instantly zapping them out of the tavern. They materialize deep inside a dark, cavernous treasure dungeon, leaving Luping stumbling and heavily dizzy from the brutal spatial travel. Hawthorne confidently urges the team to press forward into the dark abyss. But Elizabeth abruptly changes her mind, crosses her arms, and fiercely demands that Luping take her home right this second. Infuriated by this completely last-minute refusal, Gasha and Glee start aggressively shouting at her. They scream about the immense, ridiculous crystal cost required to create that teleportation scroll, violently warning her that she cannot just leave now. Elizabeth slowly turns back with a terrifyingly cold glare, silently daring them to try and physically stop her. Throwing a massive tantrum at the dungeon entrance like a toddler who decided they hate a theme park right after you paid for premium parking. Panicking to keep the peace, Luping tightly clasps his hands and desperately begs Elizabeth to just take him deeper inside for the experience. Before she can answer, Annie interrupts the argument. The young girl points out that the ambient magic power radiating from the cave walls feels remarkably similar to Elizabeth's own magic. Luping is left thoroughly confused by this massive lore drop. Sensing an opportunity, Hawthorne smoothly steps forward and places a heavy hand on Luping's shoulder to move him aside. Hawthorne steps right up to Elizabeth, puffing his chest and boldly promising that he will personally protect her from all the dangerous threats inside. Elizabeth completely ignores his existence. Looking only at Luping, she sighs and agrees to do the dungeon crawl just because she so rarely gets to come out and stretch her legs. Hawthorne is left standing there absolutely furious, getting completely ignored by the goth girl while trying to aggressively flex your dungeon stats. Bro is down astronomical. Standing before a glowing barrier door stamped with an ancient emblem, Luping suddenly notices that the entry barrier has completely closed shut right behind them. He nervously asks if they can just exit the way they came. Elizabeth casually drops the bad news. Transfer magic is totally impossible inside the special space unless the caster physically exceeds the power level of whoever set the barrier in the first place. Meaning they have absolutely no choice but to fulfill the dungeon requirements to escape. Hearing this, Glee gets a massive smile on her face and blurts out that they can finally get that thing. Gasha instantly snaps and fiercely shuts her up. Annie innocently asks Julia what exactly they are talking about. Julia awkwardly laughs it off, lying through her teeth and claiming they just mean gold coins and treasure. Looking ahead, Leping points out that there are multiple dark routes and asks which way they should go. Lolo suggests they just split up. Hawthorne firmly says not right now and orders Glee to use a mysterious move called Magic Spread. Instantly, bright golden magic beams start shooting out, rapidly spreading through every single open tunnel. Glee smugly remarks that she will find the absolute shortest route in no time. Elizabeth just smirks, coldly calling the mage completely ignorant. A second later, Glee violently falls to her knees, completely drained and gasping from sheer magical exhaustion just from trying to map the massive dungeon.